Our next slot, our project officer from CINEA, from European Commission, was not able to come to Barcelona, so he sent a video about harmony.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to participate in the final event of the Harmony project. Unfortunately, I'm not able to join you in Barcelona today. Before I start, I would like to congratulate and thank all the consortium members for all the hard work that they have put into the Harmony project, and also for all the high quality delivery they have produced. In the next few minutes, I'll give a brief overview on the EU policies that are driving transition in the transport sector, and also how research projects have a crucial role to play in this transition. We are on a mission towards climate neutrality, and we already have more than 100 cities that have committed to this goal by 2030. The European Green Deal sets clear targets to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in the transport sector by 90% until 2050. The Fit for 55 package, it looks intermediate steps, which means we need to achieve a reduction of 55% by 2030 already. The Commission has put in place two important documents in terms of the urban mobility aspects. First, the Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy, and the new urban mobility framework, which helps to implement that strategy. From these documents, I would like to mention 4 priority actions which are very related to the work that has been carried out by Harmony. First, the Commission wants to ensure that all large and medium-sized cities, which are part of the urban nodes of TEN-T network, have an SUMP in place by 2030. With the new regulation of TEN-T, there are 424 urban nodes now, and which means that all cities with more than 100,000 inhabitants will have an SUMP in place. In addition, we want to make sure that the freight dimension is considered to dedicated SULPs. And of course, we want to help cities. We want to make sure that they have policy toolbox that are fit for purpose and that can help them to decarbonize. This policy toolbox should also include complementary tools for the planning on the transport sector and to ensure that systematic aspects of mobility, energy, and sustainability are considered. The Commission is also aware of the challenges that this entails and has put in place a reformed expert group on urban mobility, which aims to support this transition, designing and implementing the new urban mobility framework. These working groups, there are 6 specific subgroups that are there, and I will invite you to look at them and to see which ones could be more interesting for you. Now let's talk about research. Of course, research and innovation are crucial to support this transition. And Harmony is a great example on how these projects can help to test and implement new solutions in cities and metropolitan areas. These projects also bring the possibility to connect academia, industry, and cities, making more viable the solutions. And of course, provides the financing that can gap and bridge and reduce the risk of such innovations. To conclude, we need to revolutionize in the transport sector. And for that, we need to look at how we move and also why we move. So of course, it's really important that the links between land use and transport are taken into consideration from the planning phase. And here, the Harmony project can be a game changer in this transition towards sustainable transport planning. Because the Harmony model suite that is being developed, it combines the spatial with the multimodal transport modeling. And it also considers all the emerging technologies, such as autonomous vehicles and drones, and how this can fit into the ecosystem. I'm super excited to see the final results of the Harmony project, and I wish you to enjoy this great program prepared for you, and that you leave this final event with a clear view on how the outcomes of the Harmony project will help you to support the Commission and also to support this transition towards the climate neutrality in European cities. Thank you.
To invite our keynote speaker, Vladimir Vorotovic, the director of ERTICO. Thank you, Vladimir, for being with us from day one.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria, for the introduction. Just go to the next slide. Is this next slide? Ah, there it is. There. All good. Thank you. Indeed, good morning in my behalf to the Harmony project partners and the guests of the event. Vlad Vorotovic, ERTICO-ITS Europe. I am a Director of Innovation Deployment at ERTICO, which is effectively the part of ERTICO that works on innovation deployment projects, mainly funded by the European Commission. But today I have a pleasure to wear another hat, and I'm going to talk a little bit as a co-lead of the expert group on urban mobility, the working group on future of urban mobility and urban space, which was announced in Thiago's video just now, which was recently established by the European Commission, DG Move. Space. Urban space. I prepared 2 slides to bring you into the future of mobility and urban space through the steps I did in my career to date. So I'm a transport professional for more than 20 years, and when I came to London in 2005 and started my work as a consultant, this is how Exhibition Road looked like. For those of you who don't know, Exhibition Road is a very busy road by pedestrians, by visitors, by tourists, because it connects some of the best museums in London, such as Science Museum, Natural History Museum, Victoria and Albert, and far there in the distance you can see the dome of Royal Albert Hall. So this was a very conventional European road at that time, and we were in 2005 at the cusp of mini revolution of rethinking the urban space and bringing multimodality, thank you, to a place like London. I was lucky to be part of a very innovative project at the time, share space project of Exhibition Road, working as an engineer on design and transport modeling on tactical and micro simulation level, the 2 slides in the middle, trying to represent how Exhibition Road may look like and work in this new concept of traffic calming measure, because it will be converted to 20 miles per hour road, and also with pedestrians and tourists comfortably walking through the space that doesn't anymore have curbs, that is, there is no distinction between the carriageway and the pavement. As you can see, it was just this crossed pavement sort of solution by Dixon Jones, the architects, who were the main contractor, and the client was Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. What I had to do then and there, and linked to the project like Harmony, we had to seriously modify and code again and again the settings in the tools we used at the time, because it wasn't possible to take an off-shelf transport modeling software and create this type of solution. So we started evolving the modeling suite at that time using this project as an example. And there is a paper published about what we did with visualization of traffic behavior using these models. And a couple of years later, this is how Exhibition Road looks like and to date, with a very, very new concept. I believe that was certainly in the UK and London, first share space project, and it started, as I said, a mini revolution that's now going across Europe, and we have more and more reconsideration of use of urban space in cities like London, but also other cities around Europe. Now, all that work and starting to work on London Road Network, it was very natural that I moved to next step, which was basically going to work for Transport for London. Again, the main authority managing transport traffic signal systems and main roads in the city. And I have a pleasure to say that I worked there for 11 years, so biggest part of my career to date. And I was the architect of the modeling suite of Transport for London, in particular in the operational modeling domain, starting with tactical microsimulation and junction level, and then bottom left corner shows there the traffic management system, where we connected our transport modeling tools with an offline version of a traffic control system. And we linked everything in strategic level, and you can see two different examples of the layers of modeling that London has in Transport for London Modeling Guidelines version 3 and 4, bottom-up or top-down approach. But at that time, as you can see on those images and videos, we were also looking at the latest technology, where we try to understand how we can relay the message of the changes that are happening in streets of London to general public stakeholders, and also then scientific angle. This cycling simulator was the first one in the world using virtual reality, where the cyclist is interacting with the traffic and pedestrians in a place like Oxford Street, which is one of the busiest roads in London and certainly busiest shopping area, which at the time there were also consideration to fully pedestrianize the road, which is still a shame that I was strongly believing that should happen, but unfortunately not yet. So that was the transport modeling, the modeling suite, the future of mobility, if you want, and urban space. So I think that kind of brings you why I am fortunate to be here and speak with you as a keynote speaker. And Maria already revealed, actually, that this is a full circle for me, because I was at the launch event in 2019, in June, at UCL, of Harmony Project, because in particular the topics you were working on were of interest to us in transport professional, transport modeling professionals as well. Now, future mobility. This is one example that I found online of how cities and regions might look like if we incorporate the futuristic modes of transport and new mobility technologies that was referenced in Harmony. It looks a lot like streets out there, but with some added layers, right? We have connectivity, we have this personal displays that do the guidance and navigation through the cities. You can see there in the middle on the balcony, there is a person expecting a drone delivery, a parcel delivery. Okay, so these are the futuristic elements sprinkled around. And this is, if we look a couple of years ago, how somebody would say the future of mobility might look like. But what I'd like to do often is to go all the way back and find out what people thought that mobility might look like, in this instance, in 200 years ago. And this is taken from England. This is the Victorian engineers at the time dreaming about how urban and peri-urban mobility and inter-urban and transcontinental urban mobility might look like. I don't think we will ever see those bat-shaped flying zeppelins above our cities and regions. However, do pay attention to the micro-mobility that is happening on the surface. We have VeloCycle, with this horse-shaped bicycle. Do pay attention to this huge tube, which is Grand Vacuum Tube Company, that is used for mass transit idea to transfer people. And in there says, from London to Bengal, okay? Yes, they were going ahead of the time, but then these are the people who, not less than 50 years later, would create the first mass transit, public transport, underground railway system in the world. In 1863, in London, Metropolitan Line was open, and this was still with steam engines, and for better part of 50 years, the steam engines were going underneath London. And imagine the steam, and in particular issue then was smoke. You will enter the carriageway and you will get out and you will be smudged by the smoke, but you will have a very novel way of public transport in a city. So that's how futuristic these views are. And they actually had some things that we see happening 200 years later, perhaps. So Hyperloop, well, that might have its early inspiration in the Grand Vacuum Tube Company solution. Not yet there, but we see the concept being developed. And then actually some things which are already beyond the state of imagined and concepts, tested and about to be deployed and working. And happy to hear and see in Harmony things like drone deliveries. But what about cargo bikes and electric cargo bikes, which basically means we're now talking about serious weight that you can transfer in urban logistics. And then in the last mile, it could be an electric cargo bike in combination with a heavy drone that transfers parcels across urban, interurban areas. And this was demonstrated at the ITS World Congress organized by ERTICO in Hamburg just a year and a half ago. So, yeah, not bat-shaped Zeppelins, and maybe not yet the tube that will connect London with another part of Earth, but maybe a bit closer. But we are seeing a very exciting story of development of mobility throughout the history. And then how that takes us to what we're currently working on in ERTICO, and we link to the projects such as Harmony. So ERTICO, for those of you who don't know, in the upper right corner, is a partnership. It's a fairly unique in the setup. It's a public sector and private sector partnership, where 1/3 of our partners come from from public sector, cities, ministries, road authorities. And then we have different pillars, connectivity, service providers, research, traffic and technology, etc. And about 5-6 years ago, we developed a vision, which we call Vision 2030. And in this pictorial, you see how we envisage the vision, which does look similar like other like-minded people and you are envisaging through projects like Harmony. And we put those words to kind of connect with the pictorial. So the future might and will be connected, automated, digital, multimodal, clean, safe, electric, integrated, on-demand, user-centric. And I like to put all of that in a wrapper of shared, because that is an important point. And you will see throughout my talk the importance of shared mobility and equitable use of space we have in our cities and regions throughout Europe. Now, this is a vision, then we go to the next step, the strategy. And ERTICO aligns its strategy very much with what was mentioned earlier by and project it's like Harmony itself, and also what Thiago mentioned, Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy by the European Commission, released about a year and a half ago, and Urban Mobility Framework as well. Again, the pillars are there, sustainable, smart and resilient mobility. What we then do as ERTICO, as an organization that deploys the solutions, well, and I like to say we are the deployment arm of the institutions such as the European Commission. So we make the policy and strategy into tangible work and outputs. So on the right-hand side are the topics which are in our vision, which is sustainable, safe, and efficient mobility. And then we put a barometer in the middle, and we want to measure the impact of all of our work at ERTICO. In blue text, you will see with quantifiers, with measurable outputs. For example, if we talk about decarbonization, how we can contribute to the goal of the Commission in the black text. In blue, ERTICO will contribute to savings in this instance of 1 million tons in our project of CO2 by 2030. If we talk about safety, saving more than 10,000 lives by deploying smart solutions in projects that will protect the users in transport and mobility systems. And then in the notorious congestion, how our efficiency can be demonstrated to saving 1 million hours of delay in being on congested roads. We are working on methodology, how we measure this, and very closely following the European Commission Sustainable Urban Mobility Indicators work, and I will reference that later with my other hat. And finally, if you go from vision to strategy, you reach the roadmaps, what we did, we have 4 designated focus areas where our project and work are placed: clean and eco-mobility, connected, cooperative and automated mobility, transport and logistics, and urban mobility. And in this instance, it is the urban mobility that I want to reference. We will not go in all of the details, but I just wanted to demonstrate to you our roadmap, how we can achieve 2030, 2035, we're going to be pushing on 2040, 2050. The text are the key components of strategy from the European Commission, for example, and then in blue color, the boxes represent active projects or projects about to start on this topic. And in green color, you will see, and I will reference later, the innovation platforms that we are working very closely with. Some of them are within ERTICO ecosystem, some are affiliated to ERTICO, such as TISA, Traffic Management 2.0, TM 2.0, or Mass Alliance. So, yeah, a roadmap, achieving and measuring in that barometer for each, and each of our focus area has a roadmap. I just want to focus on this one, but if you go on ertico.com, you will see the other roadmaps. Now, the final, before I go, because my topic of my talk is future of mobility, and then when Europe stands. And just to close the future of mobility, I decided that for this purpose, it would be convenient to ask artificial intelligence about future of mobility. So what artificial intelligence can tell us, what we see in here as future of mobility? It does look a bit dystopian. I don't know how much you see there. And you can choose, do you want to take a red or blue pill? Yeah, it's a matrix reference because there is this level of uncertainty. However, isn't it quite interesting that all these days and weeks, everybody is popping up on social media and in general media, how people are interacting with artificial intelligence to what is known as ChatGPT and OpenAI. And I asked the question to the artificial intelligence, can you tell me what is the future of mobility? Because I thought maybe I can do the whole presentation by the artificial intelligence. Yeah, most of it is human intelligence still. But what was really fascinating was that the key future technology and future mobility trends by the AI were actually electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, shared mobility, mobility as a service, and sustainable transportation. That's pretty much what most of us, I hope all, are in agreement. Perhaps one thing I did notice that was missing, and then this is the last paragraph, where AI is telling us what likely future of mobility will be. So sustainable, efficient, okay, accessible, new technologies, people getting around with ease, and we don't have negative impact of transport and mobility on our environment. I did notice that safety and being safe in that context was skipped, for example. Shall we be worried that artificial intelligence doesn't care about our safety as humans? But that was a good confluence of what professionals, organizations like ERTICO and artificial intelligence think about future mobility. Let's now see what the European Commission is doing. And again, Thiago Tavares, policy officer, he mentioned in his video the work of the EGUM, and kindly, with agreement of the Commission, I'm sharing you just some information, and you will hear a lot more, and Thiago was also referencing this, but I wanted to connect a couple of things and a couple of food for thoughts as well happening. So, end of last year, the expert group has been established. I see fellow members of the expert group here in the audience as well. And just earlier this month, on the 8th of February, we met in Brussels, where we now have 6 designated groups in which we are working on the topics. And these are the groups. Group number 1, SUMP monitoring and implementation. And I will mention here what I said earlier about how ERTICO is developing methodology to measure the impact. It is the group that will be responsible for sustainable urban mobility indicators within the SUMP framework, which is very much important and relevant to the Harmony project, of course. Then we have the group number 2, Urban Vehicle Access Regulations, UVAR. Ivo might be one who you want to talk with about that. So it's great. You have two leads, co-leads of the groups already in the room. Public transport and shared mobility, group number 3. Urban logistics, active mobility and safety of vulnerable road users. And then I have really a pleasure to be a co-lead of future of urban mobility and inclusive and sustainable urban space. And let's just go a little bit into the links between projects like Harmony and the work we all do as transport professionals with relation to these groups. You heard in the talk earlier that the sustainable urban mobility plans will be developed and worked on for all 424 nodes, urban nodes on 10T network. And with pleasure, I'm sharing some famous sum circle by Rupert Consult, which is taking us to the process. And then you see the 10T network. And I want to point out, it's not just the cities in EU member states who are working using some framework, but outside as well, such as Turkey or Western Balkans, for example. I wanted to correlate to, and with attention and closely, we'll be following later today, the work of Harmony project on the recommendations for the SAMs, but also the suite of software and tools that can help us, transport professionals, to evaluate the solutions with regards to sustainable urban mobility planning. The subgroup number 6, the one on future urban mobility and urban space, has these two main goals, deliverables, which we'll be working on imminently. We started the work already. And it is, as you can see, the topics, limited urban space and the gaps, needs and short-term priorities with regards to future of urban mobility. And very happy to state that with City of Bremen, ERTICO is co-leading the group. Why City of Bremen? Well, this is excellent example of a very forward-thinking city, a pioneer in car sharing in Europe. This is a study done in 2018, and if you see the outcomes of this study, where one car sharing vehicle potentially replace 16 privately owned vehicles in a system in Bremen, and then my fellow co-lead of the group in his statement said, yeah, some people thought this was very innovative, I wouldn't use those words, but although they had a slowdown due to COVID, you now have 20,000 active car-sharing users in the city of Bremen, and the economical benefits and environmental benefits for the city are immense. And this is what we're going to then try as a subgroup to relate and extrapolate across the work of EGUM and all of us as one example how we can make the future transport systems in Europe sustainable, efficient, and safe. And why is this important? You will see in a few moments. I wanted to share also one thing that we as ERTICO are bringing to the table of this expert group. This is mobility network management concept, developed by ERTICO, closely working with two of our innovation platforms, or the platforms we are affiliated with, TM 2.0, I mentioned earlier, and Mass Alliance. And actually, it's interesting, when Maria was speaking earlier, this is all about this transition from transport to mobility, and I will say multimodal mobility, hence the pictograms of different modes, and then user-centric. And if you remember in our vision, it's user-centric mobility vision. And then it has two sort of sets of principles and two layers. One is the conventional traffic management is being converted into mobility network management, but still with the service providers and public authorities, road operators overseeing and balancing the flows across the road. But we are now taking into account the users and mobility as a service concept, and mobility integration platform, where basically users are selecting their routes through the cities and regions, and this is not limited to city domain. And then, depending on their decisions, we have this loop of information in mobility value chain, because the rebalancing happens again and again and again. So more information, more work on this you will see and hear from us. And then, in a final part of my presentation, I just wanted to give you the challenges. because it's great to talk about the vision. I think transport professionals are very much aligned on the visions, but there are some big obstacles to overcome. This was a study by the Commission presented at the EGU meeting. So I'm going to go next slide. If you want to see the study, the results, the reports, the Excel sheets, which have all the data, you can go on that website, or actually you can scan this QR code and it will take you to the Commission website. It's New Mobility Patterns Study. What is really, really important, a great sample, more than 100,000 inhabitants of European Union across 27 member states. We have 3 topics, 3 tasks on, let's simplify it, passenger or people and goods movements across member states. And results are not that great for some of us and give us those challenges. I selected only 3 things to show you today due to economy of time. We are in Europe, in 27 member states, in a car-dominant society, and we still have car-centric movements in both urban mobility and short-distance mobility. 50 and 56% blue color represent cars. The next natural segment is walking, about 30%, give or take, and then it goes into public transport, 8%, and then cycling and motorcycles. Not as much, and what we want to see, and I'm now talking as somebody who was working, as I said, for Transport for London, where we were aiming 50% and more public transport in order to make London moving. And I assume it's same for all of the cities and regions across Europe, and this is why we need to come up with the solutions to these challenges, and we need tools such as the Harmony Modeling Suite, or anything that we talk about, car sharing in Bremen, etc., to address these challenges. Why people are enjoying their car trips? 2 top reasons for choosing car, about 12, 13 top reasons, with the split, in, you see the percentages on each of the reasons, and the split is between male and female drivers and age groups. And yeah, the statements are taken from this comprehensive survey. Cars are faster, comfortable, no public transport alternative, that's a challenge. Flexibility, cheaper, that's interesting. Public transport stop, not accessible, again, very far, unreliable. I have to carry this, that, drop kids to school, etc. So that's a challenge. And finally, this is the split of the urban car trips by distance across 27 member states, and at the top is the collective, aggregated number rather. Less than 3 kilometers if you don't see the first column, and then between 3 and 5, 5 to 10, and 10 and more. And then you can see that we have certain countries, certain societies with a very large share of short distance trips made by cars. Now we also have to be mindful. Europe is diverse in a sense of weather and climate. Oops. Weather and climate. So of course, Cyprus is a very hot place, and Estonia perhaps colder, and Greece, again, hot. It's not easy to sometimes make all of these trips in mode. So we need to come up with solutions that will work for most to try to see the shift of these trips going to more sustainable modes, of course. So these are the challenges. And my final slide is talking about, let's call it ray of light. We have at ERTICO conducted a very large global survey. It's a city moonshot survey. Yes, if you scan that QR code, it will take you to the report of the first phase of that survey. It was a survey of 150 cities and regions globally, with about 100 in Europe, where we asked them, tell us, the city managers, the city transport and mobility managers, what are your challenges, what are your objectives, where are you with concepts and new mobility ideas such as mobility as a service, urban air mobility, electromobility, data sharing, what is the practice, air quality, etc. And there was something I wanted to bring to close this segment, that if you see the first 2 findings, with, let's say, majority, a large majority, in first instance, addition of bicycle lanes. It's more than 120, about 125, 7 cities out of 150 interviewed. So they realize, we all realize that, okay, if you want sustainable modes, if you want cycling, well, then you need to make cycling infrastructure because you need provision for people to cycle. If you want to improve your public transport, thus reduce the private car usage and the congestion that may come as a result of it, you need to invest in public transport, etc., etc. So do look at the report. You will see we are seeing this transition. Like I said, it's ongoing work, and we all as transport professionals have a lot of work to do, but they are promising signs. And with that, I thank you for your attention, and thank you again for the organizers and friends from transport sector for having me this morning. Thank you.